On today's episode, we're going to be talking about the Orlando Magic. The Orlando Magic are coming off a year where they went 41-41 in 2024-25 and ended up losing in the first round of the playoffs. In the offseason, they brought in two very promising rookies in the draft with Jace Richardson at the 25th pick and Noah Penda at the 32nd pick. They extended Paolo Banchero and re-signed Mo Wagner, and they headlined their offseason with a trade for Desmond Bane, while also bringing in Tyus Jones in free agency. As for losses, they lost Gary Harris and Caleb Houston in free agency, and traded away Cole Anthony and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope in the deal for Bane. They honestly look like one of these strongest teams after going all in and trading for Desmond Bane, so there were very high expectations in a year where the East was looking wide open. This had them ranked at number 9 in the power rankings. Now let's get into the season. They started off the season by going 15-10 in the first 25 games. The team was not looking like the one that everyone expected to see, and injuries continued to be an issue. Paolo missed 10 in the first 25 games, Jalen Suggs missed 5 games, and Franz Wagner went down right after game 25 with a high ankle sprain and missed almost the entirety of the season. During this time, it was clear that Desmond Bane was still in a bit of an adjustment period and in a bit of a slump as well. His scoring and shooting numbers were way down, and he was not providing the impact that he was brought in to provide. Paolo's play was also a bit up and down. It honestly was for the entire year, but it picked up a bit more after the first half of the season. He had stretches where he looked like that dominant player that everyone expected him to be, but then there were times where it looked like he forgot he was 6'10", 250 pounds. I'm not sure what was going on there. Definitely took a step back compared to the season we saw last year. After the first 25 games, Jalen Suggs had a stretch where he missed 15 of 17 games with injuries. And during this time, Anthony Black got a ton of opportunity as production increased a ton. He was already having a bit of a breakout year, but this made it even better. He was scoring, playmaking, defending, and showing off an improved ability to knock down the 3-ball. It had looked like the former 6th overall pick had really found his groove. As the team approached the deadline, Desmond Bane started to figure things out, was looking more like his normal self, but Paolo was still a bit up and down like I mentioned earlier. And the absence of Franz was really starting to show as the team rolled into the deadline with a record of 26-24, nowhere near where anyone expected them to be at this time. There was a clear issue with the roster, and it didn't seem like anything was working. As for trades at the deadline, they ended up trading away Tyus Jones and a second-round pick to the Hornets for cash. That just shows how big the signing of Tyus Jones was in the offseason. He wasn't really playing, wasn't really in the lineup. When Jalen Suggs went down, a lot of people thought that he'd just step in and do what he was doing before, but he was not touching the floor at all. All the minutes were going to Anthony Black. In the second half of the year, we saw a bit of an improvement compared to the first. Jalen Suggs was back to full health, and his energy and intensity on defensive side of the ball showed to be of tremendous help for this team. Paolo also showed a bit more urgency and aggressiveness during the second half stretch. He wanted to get this team to the playoffs, and it was showing with his level of play. The Magic ended up going 19-13 for the rest of the year, and finished with a record of 45-37. A big theme of this year that I haven't talked about too much was how often the team was in the news for locker room issues. And this was largely to do with the issues that we saw between Jamal Mosley and Paolo Banchero. It was never explicitly said that the two were butting heads, but it was clear in comments that both of them made that there were issues between the two. It also looked like two people trying to be petty in their interviews. It was very, very obvious that they were talking about each other and directing comments at each other to try and get something out of each other, but it was one of those things that seemed to always be in the news and probably part of the major issues that were going on with the team this year. The Magic ended up losing the first playing game, but won this next one to solidify the 8th seed in the playoffs, so they would go up against the Pistons. And in this matchup, they almost shocked the world. They took advantage of the Pistons' offensive struggles and lack of shooting, and were able to match their physicality and defensive presence. They went up 3-1 and looked like they had the series in the bag, but unfortunately this was not the case, as they ended up losing the next 3 games and blew the 3-1 series lead, ending their season there. After the team blew that 3-1 series lead, reports emerged detailing mounting pressure and irreparable disconnect between Mosley and certain players. Mosley was fired very soon after the season ended. I think it was less than 24 hours that it was announced that he was fired from the team. Not a very surprising fire. There was a lot of doubt with his ability to coach. I mean, they went to the playoffs the last 3 years and had the exact same result every year, so I was not shocked to see him get fired there. As for some key players that I haven't talked about yet, first one being Wendell Carter Jr., he had a much better season than last year just due to the fact that he was able to stay healthy and give the Magic everything they needed him on both ends of the court. And then he had that amazing postseason run. He was making Jalen Duren look like a little kid out there, just absolutely dominating him game in and game out. The next guy is Tristan da Silva. He stepped in the absence of Franz and Jalen Suggs to be a point forward type of player. He fits their culture and brings a unique skill set to the team on both sides of the floor. I believe he's definitely a part of their future lineup. Looking ahead for the Magic pushed the chips all in for contention and signaled the end of their rebuild by trading 4 first-round picks and a pick swap for Desmond Bane. This was in the hope of transforming the team into a true Eastern Conference contender, which many people saw them as going into the season. Unfortunately, the year did not go as they expected. The season fell well short of the expectations. After being projected as one of the East's top teams and the league's most improved squad, Orlando failed to make a leap and suffered another disappointing first-round playoff exit. This was largely due to the fact that there was a ton of injuries on the roster this year. Franz Wagner and Jalen Suggs both missed significant time, preventing Orlando from consistently playing with its intended starting lineup. We didn't even see Franz in the playoffs this year. I know last year we saw the thing where Franz and Paolo had the exact same injury at 2 separate times. That really hurt them. This year, Paolo was able to stay healthy, except for that little 10-game stretch he missed at the start of the year. But Franz was like never on the floor. He had the ankle sprain, and it held him out the entire year pretty much. He was in and out of the lineup a little bit at the end of the season, played a couple games, and he'd missed a bunch of games. But the fact that he wasn't able to be healthy for the playoffs is a huge thing to take into account going into the offseason this year. But as for recent news, the coaching change is probably the biggest organizational shift. Following the playoff collapse, like I mentioned earlier, the Magic fired coach Jamal Mosley, and as of last week, the team named Sean Sweeney from the Spurs as the new head coach. The organization brings in a young defensive-minded coach who emphasizes accountability, preparation, and player development. He's earned a strong reputation around the NBA for helping build elite defenses and developing young talent. He worked very closely with stars like Luka Doncic and Victor Wembanyama, while serving as key assistants in Dallas and San Antonio. A big-time get for this young franchise as they look to try and take that next step. He's currently coaching in the NBA Finals right now and has 100% earned this job. I'm looking forward to see what he could do and what he can sort of bring out of this team next year. I think the biggest thing this team can look forward to going into the offseason is the core still shows flashes of elite potential. When healthy, the lineup of Suggs, Bane, Wagner, Paolo, and Wendell Carter Jr. performed at a very high level and posted an excellent net rating numbers throughout the season and the playoffs. But this roster is becoming very expensive very quickly. With Banchero's max extension kicking in, Orlando now has 4 players earning well over $30 million annually, pushing the team into the luxury tax territory and potentially towards apron restrictions. Not exactly where you want to be when you're a first-round exit. You want to have some area to play with in the offseason, especially money. You want to have some room to bring in some good depth pieces, some role players, or even have the opportunity to trade for someone. But Orlando is in a situation where they got a lot of money things they got to figure out and quickly. And honestly, the Orlando Magic front office must decide whether this roster deserves another chance. Management believes injuries played a major role in a disappointing season, creating a debate whether the current core simply needs better health or if larger roster changes are necessary. Jalen Suggs is a name that's been thrown around in a lot of trade talks, but the biggest question is if the Magic will make the decision to split up Paolo and Franz this offseason. It is one of those decisions that may be inevitable, especially with how little we've seen the two play together over the last couple seasons. And honestly, Franz Wagner is looking like the odd man out here, with his inability to stay healthy at very important times like the playoffs this year. The organization could look to move on from him sooner than we think. And I know there was a lot of talk when Paolo was getting his extension on who would be the one they keep around long term, kind of like the Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum situation. But honestly, I think Franz is the one that has to go. With all the trades they made in the last few years, they don't have an opportunity to bring in any first-round talent this year in this year's deep draft. I think that's a major downside of their offseason because now they have to look to bring in someone either on a minimum contract or trade for someone instead of trying to bring in one of those talented young rookies to bring in a young guy that can contribute right away. But luckily for them, when it comes to long-term talent, Anthony Black looks like the next long-term building block. He took a major step forward before his late season back injury, improving his scoring, his efficiency, his defensive impact, while positioning himself as a likely extension candidate, I think, as soon as he's eligible. They definitely have to extend this guy. He's a phenomenal player, brings a lot of positional size to that point guard, shooting guard position. I think they extend him as soon as he's eligible, like right away. The biggest theme now seems to be talking about the young guys. Players like Anthony Black, Tristan DeSilva, Jace Richardson, Noah Penda, and Jamal Cain, who I haven't really talked about a lot. Jamal Cain kind of came on later in the season as like a kind of a 3-and-D wing, but mostly as a defensive wing. Brought a lot of high energy, super athletic, had that dunk on Jalen Duren, and earned himself a standard contract. I love watching him play. He was so fun to see in the playoffs. I didn't watch a lot of Magic games towards the end of the year, but in the playoffs, he was getting a ton of rotational minutes. He did a lot of off-ball action, cutting to the hoop and coming off-ball screens, stuff like that. Wasn't a main facilitator and role player on offense, but on defense, he was sitting down and putting the clamps on a lot of players. Brings a ton of energy to the floor, like I said. I like Jamal Cain for this team. I think he fits their culture perfectly. Anyways, all those young guys that I just mentioned provide Orlando with valuable low-cost contributions, which is super important with how expensive their main core is now. But all in all, the biggest need for Orlando is that bench shooting and overall bench scoring. Orlando's reserves rank near the bottom of the league in three-point shooting. Additional shooting and an athletic rebounding big man to help out Wendell Carter are definitely the team's top priorities going into this summer. To sum it all up, the Magic entered win now mode with the Desmond Bane trade, but failed to meet lofty expectations, leaving the organization to decide whether injuries and coaching change are enough to unlock the potential of an expensive core led by Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, if he's still around, and Jalen Suggs, or if major moves need to be made involving some of those core guys.